We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity for Mental Health. And today we're going through mental health for the amiable personality. And so the amiable personality is an interesting personality because if you chose the ball, like which of the four shapes would you tend to like the most? If you chose the ball, which of the four things cause you most frustration? If you chose out of conflict with others, if you chose this, you'd probably be an amiable personality. And so the amiable personality is a very interesting personality. When you look at mental health, what are some of the common, mental health issues that the amiable will have? So it's panic attacks, passive aggressive, stress, PTSD, anxiety, and social phobias. Now, there's pros to each one of these. Like it's positive to have, there's something positive that goes along with all of these. And so what's the positive of, panic attacks? Maybe that you care. Like if you didn't care about something, you wouldn't have panic attacks because there's nothing. So Tim, remember when you got your phone back?
I do.
So, like Tim and I love that he's co-hosting this, podcast. And if you love to have others on as special guests for sure. So if you'd like to be a special guest or know somebody. And so, like, it's a little weird. Like the whole thing is a little weird. The whole podcast, it's okay. Like when you go through what, like we've gone through, like somebody said once, like, I'm totally normal based on what I've been through. And so, in panic attacks, I remember our second oldest daughter, we were going to see a friend in the hospital and he had tried to commit suicide. And she and a girlfriend were in the back seat and we were heading to see this guy. And, her girlfriend said, I am so nervous that I'm going to see him because I'm going to have a panic attack. I think I'm going to have a panic attack. And I said, oh, I know how to solve that. And she's like, really? Oh, that'd be so great. And then Melissa's like, yeah, don't feed the monster. Like he doesn't. Don't listen to him. What a nice daughter that is. It was when she was maybe 1920, something like that. So, yeah. And she's like, so can you? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay. And I said, okay, have a panic attack. She's like, you can't do that. I said, exactly. So what people do is with a panic attack, they go ahead and they try to avoid it. They try to avoid the panic attack. And when you try to avoid something, your mind is subconsciously drawn to it. So I said, just try to have a panic attack and you won't. And Melissa's like, my daughter's like, that won't work, which is fine. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Whatever. They didn't have a panic attack. Neither of them had a panic attack. They were fine there visiting him in the hospital. And so fast forward, I don't know how many years, 7, 10, something like that. So Tim and I are in our office and, my oldest son committed suicide. He was 30 years old, rifle shot to the head. Tim, 19 at the time, he was 5 feet away from him. He saw it, experienced everything. So, I mean, that's people who say there's not different levels of trauma. Like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. It seems like there's different. And I know what they're saying. I'm not saying it's wrong. Like when I would go ahead and share that happened, especially the Christian pastors, they seem to have more trauma than I did. And it was my son. And so anyways, we're sitting in the room and because Tim was in the room and the officers, took his phone and they didn't return it for months and months. I don't know, long time, couple of months, whatever it was. And he finally got it back and he's like, Dad, I'm a little nervous about going in, which I get. So all of a sudden, so it's the text of his brother, my son, like the last words, the last thing that he said, text before he died. So I wanted to be there and be a good dad. So he's like, hey, I think I'm going to do this when you're around. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. And all of a sudden he starts reading the text and he starts shaking. He starts like a panic, like this is full on. He's shaking, he's crying. And I get it, like, holy cow, like for sure. And so I go over there and I hug him and hold him. And I hurt, just hurt. I hurt so much. And he calms down. He calms down and he's down, and then he's like, Dad, do you want to see it? I'm thinking, no, I do not want to see it. Like, this is too much for me. But, me being a man, don't want to look like a wuss. And me wanting to be there for my son, like, I'm like, I wasn't even in the room. I mean, I went afterwards to the room and his body wasn't there, but everything else, it hadn't been cleaned up. And I smelled the smells and I saw everything, you know, and I don't even do good with needles or blood or anything because I can visualize, like I can feel it's like I was there even though I wasn't there. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, Tim, I'll look at it. And I started to read it, and all of a sudden I went into a panic attack. And Tim will vouch for this. Like, like this was not fake. This was not like dad being dad. Like I just started to shake and cry, and I'm like I'm shaking and crying, and I'm like, I am so hurt. I'm in so much pain and everything. I can't control it. And I don't know. It seemed like a few minutes, but it might have only been a minute. I don't know. It was some period of time. And Tim's like, Dad, stop it. You're having a panic attack. And then I did. Like it just, he told me, stop it. And I did. Like I'm crying uncontrollably and I'm shaking. And he said, Dad, stop it. And I did. Just boom. Okay. He's like, dang, that was awesome. Wow, that was so. He laughed, I laughed, we hugged. And so, if you're a mental health professional, I'm thinking you're probably thinking, dang, I want to talk to Mark. Like, how does he do that? Or you might be like, does he have a degree? Like, is he on meds? Because he can't do that. Like, you can't do that. You can't go through that. Well, I did. Him's there and he can validate it. The passive aggressive, if you're that, well, what's the advantage of being a passive aggressive? Well, at least you're passive, not just aggressive, right? So it's a bad name. It's like be passive, and if that works, great. And if it doesn't, you can get aggressive. You're just an amiable analytic. And so stress is not inherently bad. It's how we handle stress. And so none of us like stress, but the amiables is especially sensitive to it because stress often creates conflict. And then PTSD, post-traumatic stress, like you care. Like, why do some people do it and some people don't? They say over in Israel, like there's almost no PTSD. In America, there's a ton of it. And the theory is they tell people when they go into the army, they tell people when you go into the army, you're going to see some really, really messy things. And it's going to mess with your mind totally. And then you're going to get out and you're going to be fine. And you are. Because the mind is phenomenal. But there's not as much money in that as medication and counseling for the rest of your life and therapy and all that. And I'm not against medication. I'm not against therapy. I mean, in another session, we'll talk about some of that and when I was 19 and how my world got rocked in a more significant way than having your son commit suicide. And so the brain is phenomenal. And then anxiety is not bad. Anxiety is good. There's a lot of anxiety in life. There just is. And so why is this so much more now than it's ever been before? Maybe because, we're preventing our kids from having anxiety. So when life throws them something, like there's no amount of medication that you can take, when your son or your brother commits suicide. I think it's not going to fix it. Like you're going to have to heal or not. And then social phobia, shoot, that's good because you want to be around social. I love people. I just don't like them. So like, do I have social phobia? I don't know. Maybe I don't like being around people. Tim, your thoughts on the amiable personality and mental health?
So I definitely have an agreement when it comes to, you know, focusing and stopping it. But what about the individuals like myself that use it almost as a superpower?
See, I think
When you,
that's better. See, I think that's healing.
well, I mean more as in the fact of for a while, I would say not that I would purposely do it, but I potentially could be have purposely have done it where I'd use my mental health things for my benefit. Like some say, if you focus on a panic attack, you can have one. I could have a panic attack right now. It's just I put myself in that place, I create the image, and then bam, I'm freaking out. And for someone that can do that, a lot of people are going to give you different types of sympathy.
Right.
So how does one how does one, you know, work away from that when it comes to using their mental health almost as a weapon?
Right. It's a great question. Um, it's a great question. Like there was a joke in our family, like it was really cool. Like when we went ahead and when Jonathan died and then we had all the family and a lot of people did really nice things. They were very generous and had a client, in Boston, Ken Bucci and his wife, and they sent us a whole bunch of food. And and then total strangers too, like the air conditioning like quit, like and it was hot and they couldn't get us in for 3 days. And I think my son-in-law, somebody went ahead and said, "Hey, just had a death in a family, suicide," and so we have all the family, so it's really important. And they immediately fit us in. And not only did they fit us in, but then they didn't charge it for us, and they didn't charge us anything for it. And it's like I'll never forget that. I am so appreciative of that. And so there's this little joke that it's like Jonathan he keeps giving, like he keeps giving to us. And um, so I think the thing is that often what feels good in the short term hurts us in the long term. And and so if people are feeling played, if people are feeling that we're using that for our benefit and their harm, we're going to hurt the current relationships that we have. And so it's hard. It's you know, the mental disciplines that are needed to go ahead and to do that or just it's just crazy. So I think that's something that, are we doing it for our benefit? And are we lazy? Are we manipulating improperly? Are we leveraging improperly? And so I have a whole bunch of rules, and one of those rules is I don't ever say anything to people. I don't share anything with people unless I think it's either going to bring them benefit or by them hearing it, it's going to bring me benefit. And they're okay with bringing me benefit. Like there's got to be benefit. They might have insight into the situation. And so it's weird. I got a note yesterday, and I was at, so we live in Amish territory, and some of our neighbors invited us to a Amish school event, play, and we went there, and there was this great grandfather. So he's probably 10, 15 years older than I was. He and I started talking, and it was pretty crazy. It was very cool. And one of my associates called him, and you know, and he said his grandson died of suicide. He remembers me saying something about Jonathan, and so he wanted to talk with me. So I don't know. One other rule I have is that if I can't answer a question in 3 minutes or less with a model, then I don't have deep understanding of that question. So obviously I don't have a good answer, tight answer. I don't have that's something that I'm working through too, Tim, as well. Other thoughts, questions, or did that help or not at all? Or
Um, I think it gave me some type of clarity in myself. Um, you know, I think that what I've been through is my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Um, you know, I'm at work and I'm talking to these guys that have, uh, that have served, and they've been through some horrific things that I won't go into details on, but they've shared. And you think that they'd look at me like, oh, oh, brother. But talking with them, I get told by a lot of people that I have this hope in my eyes that I've been through a lot, and that I still keep on pushing, and they see that. For 3-4 years, I didn't think I gave that. I thought I walked into a room and I killed the room's energy. And sometimes I still do that. And they'll being working with the people I am, being as close as I am, they'll tell me, they're like, Tim, you're bringing the vibe down, dude. And I think it's really cool to be surrounded by a lot of people that understand different groups of people. I've got a wide variety of people at my job that have been through a lot of situations like myself. And I think it's really cool that we all kind of keep each other in check. And you think that a bunch of stoners working in the cultivation factory to grow cannabis would be a lot of lazy people, because that's just who we're put out to be. And I see every day as a team us trying to strive to break that image that people have created for us, because our entire lives a lot of people have told us we're not going to do more. And so keeping that in check, and I think it's pretty cool, is I had a situation that I kept telling myself, like, I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm going to have a panic attack. I know I'm going to have a panic attack. And for 4 to 5 hours, I'm freaking out. And I tell my manager this. I'm like, dude, like I'm freaking out a little bit. And he's like, dude, I'm freaking out 24/7. But you and I are here together. We're friends. Let's do this. And so um I think surrounding yourself with people that have had a wide variety of experience can be breathtaking, because especially people in the military and stuff, is they've been through a lot. They understand it is a lot, but you just gotta, like, I always ask, what's your best advice? And they're like, Tim, I have no idea what to tell you, dude. Just keep doing it. Just keep on pushing. Like, we don't have advice. We just do what we do because we have to.
Right. And that's what the whole voices of integrity, like you're going to hear stuff. And especially if you're in the mental health, you know, um, arena industry, there's going to be stuff on here that you're not going to like to hear. Like, and it's okay. I mean, I remember when my dad died, which was like, I don't know, 3, 4 years before my son died. And I was talking to, actually that good friend who sent us the food, Ken Bucci. Like, he's like, didn't your dad die yesterday? I'm like, yeah. He's like, why are you back at work? I said, because it's like, that's what my dad would do. Like he just a hard worker. He's fine. Like it's no big deal. Like I died. Okay, you can mourn for 10 minutes and get back to work. Like it's just how my dad was. It's fine. It's not disrespectful to him. That's how he was. And Tim's smiling because he knows that's how my dad was. It's his grandfather. And he's like, wow. He's like, man, I don't know about you, Mark. You're just different. I said, well, I actually have a question for you. I said, my wife says that I'm not handling my dad's death well. And he's like, okay. And so she thinks I ought to go in and see someone. Now I've seen someone in this, for mental health. I'm going to talk to you about different stories of therapists that I've met with. Like, I can't wait to talk about, Beth Smith. Like that one's going to be, she's interesting. But anyways, so I've had therapists. I'm not against them. I had one at 21, 22 that actually probably saved my life. So I'm not against them. I just, but I said, hey, so my wife's thinking I should go ahead and, get a therapist. And he's like, he laughs and he's like, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. I'm like, why? Like, whoa, wait, why? And he's like, because that therapist, you're going to mess up their mind so much they'll need therapy and medication the rest of your life. Like, really, dude? Like, whoa. Like, that's not very nice to say to a friend. But I get it. I get it. It's like, okay, like the Israeli military. It's like you're going to see stuff. It's going to be messy. It's going to mess with your mind like you've never seen. It's like Tim's friend at work. He's like, dude, I'm messed 24/7. Like, welcome to my world. There's another thing, one last thing, and then we'll finish. But you gotta listen to the other ones and then participate. Like when you participate, it's like so much more fun. But Marcus Stenson, super smart guy, really nice guy, and he was reading a book, and he went and he said something about the psychologist, So the psychologist he was talking about, and they did research, and they said when society is tipping on the edge, like Germany did, with Hitler and stuff. He said when there's chaos throughout the entire country or the world. He said it's almost like a medical fact. It's almost like truth that the masses are going to put somebody in authority that has mental illness issues. Now, obviously, I'm not going to disparage any of our current people that are being put into office. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, that's weird. And he said the psychologist's thought on that is when the whole world is in total chaos, like there's insanity, and nobody can make sense of it, then somebody who's close to like you've heard of high functioning, alcoholics. Like I jokingly say, but it might be true. You meet me personally, I might be the highest functioning mentally ill person you've ever met in your life. Seriously. And so the psychologist said that the society somehow knows how to put somebody insane into leadership because the person who's insane is like, this world is no big deal. Like what's happening in the world and what's happening in my mind, it's not that far off. Like they deal with chaos in their own minds, and so they can sort out the chaos of the world. Like I'm not saying I agree or disagree. It's just strange. It's just like, huh. So if you have any, I mean, for sure, jump on and join the mobile app for sure. And if you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. One of my fondest sayings is, if I'm going to laugh about something in 10 years, why waste 10 years? Why not laugh now? Like in the mental health, my philosophy is like, if I'm going to heal in 20 years, why waste 20 years? Why not just heal now? And again, as you get to know the podcast, you share it with other people. Like I'm telling you, share it with other people. Because you and I don't know who's next to us at work or family members. We don't know what they're going through. And so they listen to this and they might have some encouragement and say, wow, these two dudes they're pretty, they're pretty out there. Always remember we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.